There's one mistake that professionals keep making at work that keeps them stuck at the same level, even when their performance looks great on paper. And the worst part is that most people don't actually realize they're making this mistake until it's too late. I'm Mostyn. I spent 20 years in one of the world's biggest firms. I'm made partner, I led huge teams, and I watched smart employees make this same mistake over and over again. And in this video, I'm going to show you why smart people make this mistake without even realizing it, and the 3 shifts that you need to make to fix it. And I know this because I've lived it myself. About 8 years into my time at KPMG, I was doing everything right. I had strong client relationships, solid performance reviews, and I was delivering consistently. And I thought I was on track. And then one of my peers, someone who I'd actually mentored, got promoted ahead of me. And I was shocked and I was actually a little bit angry. So I went to the partner who ran my part of the firm and I said, what happened? What am I missing here? And he said something that I'll never forget. He said, look, Mostyn, your work is great, but when we're in the promotions meetings deciding who to promote, your name just doesn't come up naturally. We don't hear about your wins. We hear about his. That hit me like a punch to the gut because I thought I'd been following the rules that mattered: to do the great work, don't brag too much, stay humble, let your results do the talking. But those rules weren't actually helping me. They were making me invisible. And here's what I didn't understand at the time. Invisibility isn't just one thing. It's actually 3 things that work together to keep you stuck. And when all of these things are invisible, it doesn't matter how good you are, you're not getting promoted, you're just stuck. And when leadership sits down to decide who's going to get promoted, they're not going through everybody's work history with a fine-tooth comb. They're relying on their memory, on perception, on who comes to mind when they ask who's really driving the results here. And if your work, your presence, and your story are all invisible, your name just doesn't come up. And that's when I realized invisibility isn't just a perception problem, it's a huge career risk. So I made 3 shifts to fix it, and within 12 months, I was promoted. Not because my work got better, but because my work, my presence, and my story all became visible to the people making the decisions. So the first shift you need to make is to make your work visible. Most people think that their work speaks for itself, but it doesn't. So most people say things like, I finished the analysis, or I updated the deck, or I completed the project. That's task language, and leaders don't remember tasks, they remember impact. So instead of saying, I completed the client review, say, the client review caught 3 risks before they became problems. It saved the team 2 weeks of rework. So you're not making this work up, but you're just making the value clear. Now here's the tool that makes this easy for you. Every week, write down 3 lines for anything meaningful that you've completed. What you did, why it mattered, and what improved. What I did, fix the reporting template. Why it mattered. The old one had errors that delayed decisions. What improved? We now get accurate reports 2 days faster. That gives you a story that you can use in your one-to-ones, in your performance reviews, in team meetings, or anywhere where leadership is paying attention. Because here's the truth, if you don't supply a narrative for your value, someone else is going to create one for you, and it's probably not going to be the one that you want. So the narrative might be they're solid, they're reliable, but maybe not really leadership material, and you definitely don't want that. Now here's what you mustn't do. Don't make up any numbers or inflate your impact. That's just going to backfire. You just got to be honest about what actually changed. And if you don't have the exact numbers, you can say things like, this sped up the approval process, or this removed a recurring bottleneck. The goal is to help people see what you're creating, not just what you're doing. I worked with a director at a consulting firm who was working 70-hour weeks, and she kept getting passed over for promotion. And when we looked at how she talked about her work, it was all about tasks. I delivered the deck, I ran the analysis. So we shifted her language to outcomes. I restructured the client onboarding process, which cut onboarding time from 6 weeks to 3. That freed up 40 hours a month for the delivery team. 6 months later, she got promoted. Same work, different framing. Now, just before we get on to the second really important shift, I've got a special gift for you in the description. It'll make all of this easier for you. So click the link in the description now and take a look at it once you finish this video. On to the second shift. This is all about making your presence visible. So you could be doing incredible work, but if you're not where the decisions get made, your presence is invisible. So here's how to fix it. First, you want to understand where decisions actually happen in your organization. And that's not just in formal meetings, it's in hallway conversations, it's in project steering groups, it's the sessions where strategy gets debated. So your job is to get into those spaces, or at least get close to them. So here are 3 ways to do that. First, show up in decision-making meetings. Not every meeting, just ones where your expertise matters. And when you're in those meetings, do one of 3 things. You can ask a clarifying question that helps the group make a better decision. You can summarize a messy discussion in one clear sentence, or you can name a risk calmly and suggest how to reduce it. You want to connect what's being discussed to a business outcome. So here are some phrases that you can use. Can I clarify the goal here? I want to make sure we're not solving for the wrong thing. Or if the outcome we want is speed, here's the trade-off we're making. People remember the person who makes meetings more effective. That's leadership behavior. The second thing to do to make yourself more visible is to volunteer for projects where senior leaders are involved. Not every project, just the ones that matter to the business. This isn't about politics, it's about proximity. Because when you're working on something that the leadership cares about, they'll see how you think and how you solve problems and how you handle pressure. And that's how you get on their radar. And the third thing to make yourself visible in this area is to create conversations about your future. Most people wait for their manager to bring up their career, but that's really passive. So here's what you should do instead. You should say to them, look, I'm interested in progressing to the next level. What specific outcomes or capabilities do I need to demonstrate to be considered for that role? This does three things for you. It signals your ambition, which most leaders respect. It gives you a clear roadmap so that you're not guessing at what to do. And it puts you on leadership's radar, someone thinking strategically about their career. That's how you make your presence visible. The third shift is to make your story visible. If you don't own the story of your value, either someone else is going to define it badly for you or it's not going to happen at all. So here's how to own your own story. First thing to do is to frame your achievements so people understand why they mattered. This isn't bragging, it's just bringing some clarity to what you've done. So most people say something like, I led the project. Remember, that's not a story, that's a task. So the story would be, I led the project that reduced client churn by 15%, which translates to £2 million in retained revenue. So the work didn't change, but your story about it did. And don't wait for your performance review to tell this story. Tell it in the moment. When you finish a project, send a summary email highlighting the business impact. Or in meetings, connect your work to the company's top priorities. And when leaders ask what you're working on, give them a story about your progress, not a task list. The second thing to make your story visible is to build a reputation for being associated with progress. So you need to be the person leaders think of when they need something important done. So this means delivering on your commitments, being proactive rather than reactive, and consistently showing up in ways that move the business forward. One big win, unfortunately, isn't enough. You need to be consistently seen as someone who drives progress, not just completes tasks. And the third thing to keep your story visible is to keep a wins file. This is your evidence. Every time you complete something meaningful, document it. What you did, the measurable outcomes, including numbers, metrics, the impact. And then when your performance review comes around, you've got a complete portfolio of the value that you've added. I worked with a client who felt stuck as a senior manager. Great work, but hardly any visibility. And he started this weekly wins file practice. And within 6 months, he had about 20 impact stories fully documented. And when a new leadership role opened up, he had clear examples ready for the interview. And he got the job because he could show exactly what he created, not just what he'd managed. That's how you make your story visible. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. I hate self-promotion. This feels really uncomfortable. And I get it. I felt the same way. But the truth is that this isn't really self-promotion. This is just professional clarity. So if you don't communicate your impact, you're not being humble. You're being unclear about what you've done. An unclear value is just a complete career risk. Your managers are overloaded. They don't have time to track every detail of what everyone's doing. Your job is to help them see the value that you've brought. You can be visible and still be yourself. You can be visible and still be professional. You don't need to turn into someone you're not. Or maybe you're thinking, I'm too far into my career to start doing this now. Isn't it going to seem a little bit fake? But your colleagues who are getting promoted, they've been doing it for years. The only difference is you're just now noticing. So the question isn't, will this feel fake? The question is, can I afford to stay invisible for another year while my peers keep moving ahead? So do these three things to make your work, your presence, and your story visible so you actually get recognized instead of being passed over. So watch this video next where I break down how to get crystal clear on what you actually want next in your career so you can position yourself for the right move, not just any move. I'll see you there.